Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Ram Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Kirtan, and then the cross at 6:30, and then Aarti at 7.
Yes, sir. Say that again. Where are they?
Right here.
Oh. Hare Krishna. Just a brief announcement before I do kirtan. I want to draw your attention over here. There's some wonderful books there on yoga and meditation and cooking. Once you taste the wonderful prasadam, you'll want to know how to do it. So you won't go home empty-handed. I see a lot of familiar faces. Hello to all of you. Hare Krishna. I want to say greetings to Vander and Vanya. And this is for their benefit, because they're brand new to this. Most of you, coming from India, you've grown up with your grandparents chanting the Bhagavad Gita, and you've heard kirtan, and so for you it is like breathing, but for a lot of people in the Western world, as you know, that all this is very, very new. So I wanted to say to Vander and Vanya, number one, thank you for your courageousness. They even got up and danced. So, secondly, I just wanted to give them a brief overview of what we're doing here, because I remember the first time I went to the temple in 1972 in Henry Street in Brooklyn. You know, I was like, where am I? I opened the door and this 4'11" female devotee came up to me and she said, Hare Krishna. And she said, welcome to Hare Krishna temple. And I said, oh, thank you. And I walked into the temple room and it was even a bigger shock because there were, a couple of hundred devotees dancing and chanting, and the beautiful Radha Govinda deities who had just been installed not too much earlier than my first visit. So I can relate, Vander and Vanya, to what you're feeling right now. What's going on? What's happening? So I just want to explain what we're doing. This chanting, the music, is called kirtan. It's a Sanskrit word which means to glorify, to praise, to recite, depending on context, because Sanskrit language is a highly contextual language. Depending on how you use it in what regard, it has a particular meaning. So what we're doing here, kirtan means glorifying, praising the Supreme Lord. And from the perspective that we are coming from, it's called Vaishnava or Bhakti Yoga. There's one God, and everyone is family when we come together and we glorify God. So these names, the various songs that are being sung, basically are glorifications of the Supreme. That's it in a nutshell. And it's unlike prayers that you might come in contact with in Judeo-Christianity. We're not asking God for anything. It's not like, God, give me a car, I need a new Mercedes, or give me a new house, or send my son to school. We're not asking for any favors. It's simply pure glorification. Just saying, God, Krishna, Allah, Jehovah, Buddha, I am yours. That is what we're saying. I am yours. Without any pitches there. There's no, clause that you have to sign that I'm like this or like that. It's just an open heart. And the dancing is an expression of joy. Usually, the secret to kirtan, there's two secrets I'm going to share with you. The first secret is And Srila Prabhupada said this, listen. Just listen. That's the first secret, because sometimes our mind is hither, thither, and yon. It's all over the place. So to focus on hearing the sound vibration is a very, very essential component of kirtan. The second part of it is, it should be free of ego. Ego means that, the literal definition, ahankar, means false identification. It means that we should not think we are anything other than servant of God. It's not like I'm a great singer, I'm a great speaker, I'm a great this, I'm a great that. It's not a question of me, me, me. In kirtan, you take the I and the me out of the equation. And it's just one is left, and that's God. That's kirtan. So that's first thing that we're doing is the kirtan. It's also, in Western terms, it's called music meditation. Every Thursday night, I go to a group, Thursday, it's mostly all Western people. And for them, it's a meditation. Also for us, it's a meditation. If they know it as music meditation. So it is chanting of mantra, and particularly here in our group, we kind of focus on the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, because Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who came 500 years ago, he's emphasized that this is the Yuga Dharma, this is, for this particular day and age, this is the way that we can achieve more than mukti. How is that possible? More than mukti. Mukti means you want liberation, freedom from the material world. But we don't want that. We want to just put a smile on Krishna's face. That's our only. It's not, oh, I'm not chanting for liberation, I'm not chanting for this, I'm not chanting for that. It's just to put a smile on Krishna's face. So it's as close to selflessness as we can come in the chanting process is ideal internal environment for kirtan. The second thing that we are going to do next, it's called, in yoga, it's called swadhyaya. And swadhyaya literally means self-introspection, and also introspection which comes from Shastra, or the sacred texts, or the holy scriptures, in relationship to the Supreme. Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, sacred texts like that. So swadhyaya means hearing. So when I speak, I'll be speaking from both the Srimad Bhagavatam and the Bhagavad Gita, because I have a topic I hope you'll find interesting. Anyone want to know the title? I always title it, because otherwise I go, off on a tangent. So the title is Growing Old Gracefully and Enthusiastically. At 73, it's a deep meditation for me. How I can embrace it. So swadhyaya means this self-study and the study of sacred text. And then thirdly, we'll be doing what's called arti. And arti, you'll see, is a ritual performance in the bhakti tradition, in many yoga traditions, but specifically in the bhakti tradition. There are 5 very important items that we do on a regular basis. Chanting, sadhu sangha, tirtha, we go to holy places, swadhyaya, we study sacred texts, and then worshipping the deities. So kirtan, arti, etc. And what you'll see is the person that's going to do arti will be offering the world as we know it, Krishna says, as we see it, is made up of 8 elements. Earth, would everyone agree with that?
Yes.
That this universe is made up of earth?
Yes.
Fire, air, water, ether. 5 gross elements. Would everyone agree with that?
Yes.
That what we see is various permutations of earth and water and fire, air, ether. And it's also in relationship to our senses. Earth, we smell. Fire gives us the ability to see. Tongue, taste, and that taste comes through water, I believe it is. and then earth, water, fire, air, we get touch, and ether, sound vibration. So this arti will incorporate all of those elements as an offering to the Supreme Lord. We'll offer incense, and that's earth. And then we'll offer fire, and then water, and then air in the form of the peacock fan and the chamra, and ether we inundate, we permeate with sound vibration. All arti ceremonies should have chanting. Chanting, when I said those 5 aspects of bhakti, chanting is in each one of them. In sadhu sangha, in association, we chant. Right? In arti, we chant. When we go to tirtha, a holy place, we chant. And even when we swadhyaya, when we read sacred texts, we chant this. Right? We chant Sanskrit and we hear. So, Vander and Vanya, that's what we're doing here. In a nutshell. So I'm just going to chant a little bit and then speak a little bit and then we'll go into the arti, correct? So this is a song that Srila Prabhupada introduced to the devotees, and the first thing he said, "Do you know this chant?" And the devotees said, "Yes, Prabhupada, we know this." So then Prabhupada began. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivatadhari Gopi Jana Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate 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 Vasudevaya.
Sometime back, I met this elderly gentleman. It was either on the beach or on the park. My wife always says, you talk to everybody. So this elderly gentleman and I got into a conversation. He was also very eager to talk. So he said to me, you know, I'm getting very old. I think he was in his late 80s. And I said, I'm not far behind you. He said, no, I'm getting very old. He said, I've had 2 bypasses. I'm a diabetic. My vision is getting weak. I'm losing my vision. I can't hear very well. I've got arthritis. And my wife's very familiar with this because she hears it every day, 10 hours a day. When she's a medical doctor and she's primary care, so people come to her and they say, my arthritis, my eyesight, I can't hear, I can't taste anything anymore, I can't go to sleep, I can't do this, I can't do that. So the man was going on and was like checking off the list. Okay, what part of the body is he going to now? And then he said, but you know what? And I thought, oh, finally something positive. He says, I still have my driver's license. Okay. You still have your driver's license. So that made me think, in the Bhagavatam, there's a nice story. And it's about King Yayati. Some of you, maybe most of you have heard of King Yayati. So, who has heard the story? Okay, good number of people. But I think it has some relevance to growing old gracefully and enthusiastically and embracing it rather than resisting it. Because we see there's a multi-billion-dollar industry called resisting old age. It's not called that, but I call it that. So, King Yayati, as the story goes, there's 2 young, beautiful princesses. And as girls will do, you know, they were talking and having a good time. They were wandering through the forest, and there was a bunch of them, and particularly 2, Devayani and Sarmishta. Yeah, the 2 of them were particularly good friends, and they're both princesses, and they were chatting and laughing, and they came across this beautiful lake, crystal clear water, and they thought, let's go in. It's very hard to find that nowadays, but in those days, there were such lakes. So they disrobed, and they all went in, and they were cavorting about and having a good time, and all of a sudden, on the horizon, they saw Lord Shiva on Nandi with Mother Parvati, and they became really embarrassed. And they jumped out, and they immediately dressed themselves because they didn't want to offend Lord Shiva and Mother Parvati by being bathing in the raw, so to speak. So they did so, but in the flurry of activities, Sarmishta accidentally put on Devayani's cloth. She put on her sari, whatever they wear at that time. And that enraged Devayani. She's the daughter of Shukracharya, right? and Sarmishta is the daughter of King Brikshapaksha, I think. So, huh? Parkland. Yes, thank you. Appreciate that. And so they were, cultured ladies, but Sharmishta had a real anger issue. She never attended anger management classes, and she had an anger issue. So this, when Devayani saw that she had her garment on, she began to heavily insult Sharmishta, because they were two different castes. One was from the Brahmin caste, daughter of Shukracharya, and the other one was from the Kshatriya class. So she criticized Sharmishta, you are, this and that, you come to us for all your rituals, you need the Brahmins, and you're just a thief, you're stealing, and she was insulting. So Sharmishta had it up to here, and she got very, very angry at her, and she tore off her garments, ripped them into pieces, and threw her in a well. Naked, in a well. So, and then they left. So, poor Devayani, she's in the well all by herself. Along comes King Yayati. He's on a hunting party, because Kshatriyas do that. They hunt to keep their skills, their warrior skills up, etc. And he was very thirsty. He goes to the well, and he looks in the well, and he sees, lo and behold, a beautiful woman in the well. So he looks down and he goes, what's the matter? She said, I'm trapped down here. Please, good king. Oh, noble soul, please help me. So he immediately reaches down, he grabs her hand, he pulls her up, and because he's a gentleman, he's of noble birth, he immediately takes off his cloth and wraps it around her. And so she said, I'm going to westernize this a little, because it's a little funny. She said, okay, now you're my husband. So he was a little shocked. Yes, because you have touched me, and only my husband can touch me. Because she was very attracted, even though she was from a higher caste, she was very attractive. He was handsome and strong and of noble birth, and obviously a very pious, noble, powerful king she was attracted. And so she made the proposal by saying, you are my husband. You have touched me. So at first he balked, because he was thinking, how's this going to work? Pratiloma relationship. It's not looked upon favorably in Vedic culture. That means when the woman is of higher birth than the man. It's not looked. But then he thought, she's beautiful, she's intelligent, she's wise, she's obviously of good birth. So he agrees. So he agrees, and he takes her on as his wife. But somebody can forgive and not forget, and others can not forgive and not forget. So in Devayani's case, she was not forgiving and not forgetting. So she immediately told her father, and what happened? Her father said, oh no, that's all. No, he didn't say that at all. He got very angry. So the king, Sarmishta's father, realized, because I believe Sukracharya was his guru, so he realized, oh, I'm in big trouble here. Sukracharya is very angry, he's very powerful, and he's going to curse me, and oh my God, I have to go pacify him right away before this all occurs. So he approaches Sukracharya, he pays his respects, and he says, my dear Sukracharya, please forgive us, we'll do anything that you want. Sukracharya, he was moved by the petition. He said, okay, I wasn't insulted, but my daughter was insulted, so I'll put you in her hands. So like I said, some people forgive, but not forget, and other people will not forgive nor forget. So she wasn't going to forgive nor forget. She said, yes, when I get married, when the marriage ceremony occurs, then your daughter, Sharmista, she will become my maidservant. And you, dear king, you'll become the servant of my father. So can you imagine? Can you imagine for Kshatriyas? Kshatriyas do not submit to anybody. Now they had to become the servants of Sukracharya and his daughter. So that's what happened. Devayana and Yayati get married. He gives her a child, son, no less. And Sarmishta, you think she would learn her lesson, right? But she becomes very envious of the fact that Devayana has a boy from this very handsome, strong, powerful, noble king. And she approaches Yayati. She said, please, my dear king, I would like to have a child, and a child from you would be so wonderful. Now, before this all transpires, Sukracharya, in his infinite wisdom, knows that Yayati, as noble as he is lusty. He cannot control his senses. So he's very lusty. So he says to Yayati, upon giving his daughter's hand, he says, you do not bed with any other woman, and particularly Sarmishta. Very specific instruction. So Yayati says, yes, Sukracharya, yes. No worries, no problem. But also Sarmishta is very beautiful. And she approaches him, and he complies. And he gives her, Sarmishta, a son also. So this is very, very, this enrages Sukracharya to no end. Because why? Why is he enraged? He gave a very specific instruction. Don't do this. And he did it. So Sukracharya is also known for having a little bit of a temper. So he curses, he says, because your senses are out of control, you're to be a king. In Bhagavad Gita, Krishna uses the word Rajarshi. What does Rajarshi mean? It doesn't only mean king. Raja means king. But Raja Rishi. You're a Rajarshi. You're a saint king. You're a king that is supposed to be of high values. Yat yat acharati shreshtas tata idetaro. What great men do, common men follow. You're supposed to be in that leadership position. We see that now, don't we? All of our leaders are they're examples for the world, aren't they? All of our current leaders, I'll specify.
How not to be.
Huh?
How not to be.
Yeah, right. They are examples of how not to be, right? In other words, if we just turn around their behavior to the opposite, they're great examples in that way. So, what is Sukracharya's curse? Who can tell me? What is the curse to Yayati? Huh?
Prematurely old.
Yeah. Old age and invalidity. It's not only growing old. I mean, you could be older and still, be relatively in good shape and good health, and only have a few, creaks in your knees and your shoulders and things like that. So, but it was old age and invalidity. Invalid. So Yayati is like, oh my God, if you couldn't more custom design a curse that would give the maximum pain and suffering to an individual, this was it. This was the custom fit curse. Because Yayati, we all have our chinks in our armor. We all have our weaknesses. That's understood. And his specific weakness was women. especially young, beautiful women. That was his weakness. So Sukracharya cursed him. And he oh, please, dear Sukracharya ji, please do not do this to me. I'm married. You know, I have your daughter, and we have not enjoyed marital bliss, if there is such a thing. I have not enjoyed marital bliss. So what am I going to do? So Sukracharya, he thinks this over. He said, okay, there's a loophole. Yes, dear Sukracharya, what is the loophole? If one of your sons is agreeable to giving his youth to you, then that's there. And he had 5 sons. Yadu, Dhruya, Anu, Puru, and one other one. Do you know the other one? There's 5 sons. So he asked the oldest one, who's Yadu? He's thinking, my son Yadu. He's the eldest. He's wise. He's lived the longest so far. He's all of 28 years old, 30 years old, or something like that. So he calls his son, please come to see me. Yadu comes in, and he says, you know, my dear Yadu, I need something from you. Yes, dear father, anything. I need your youth. Whoa. No, we can't do that. I'm next in line, you know, Varnashram, you know, how is this all going to perpetuate your kingdom, etc.? No, I really can't do it. So he calls in the next oldest, the next oldest, the next oldest. And they all refuse because the first one, at least he had something wise to say. He used Varnashram as an excuse. The other 3 just said, no, my youthful enjoyment's eternal. It's never going to leave me. I'm not giving it to you. So finally, he's got one more hope left. His son's name is Puru. So he calls Puru in, and he says to Puru, my dear son, I just got married. I'm in the height of my masculinity and productive age. So, can you give me your youth? Now imagine, this is the youngest son. Who knows how old he is? He's not very old. You know what Puru says? Nah. No, he didn't say that. He says, immediately he says, my dear father, I've come into the world by your mercy. There is nothing I can do to repay you for that. That is my obligation to the Father. That whatever you want, whatever you need, I will give to you. Same with Bhishma, no? And Maharaj Santanu?
Yes.
Same thing, right there. Santanu wanted to enjoy, he wanted to get married, but the father said of the daughter, was it Satyavati?
Satyavati.
He said, no, I'm not giving you my daughter. Even though Santanu was big and strong and powerful and, you know. He said, no, I'm not. And he said, why? She's the daughter of a fisherman. Look how she'll be living, not in a hut, she'll be living in a palace. She'll be served. He said, because my daughter might as well be barren. Because her child will have nothing. You already have a child. So in this way, when Santanu went to Bhishma, whose name was Devavrata. He went to Devavrata at the time, and he asked, same thing, you know, similar things. My dear son, can you give up the throne? I'll make it brief. And he says, Father, whatever makes you happy. That's the first class son, is Father, whatever makes you happy. not negotiations. Can't I do this a little longer? Can't I? No, Father, whatever makes you happy. So, right there on the spot, Devavrata says, I vow to be celibate for the rest of my life. And it was such a powerful vow that all the demigods were, and you heard in the sky, Bhishma, Bhishma. It's such a terrible vow. So Yayati asked Puru. Puru says, yes, Father. And they trade places. And Yayati becomes young and powerful and virile. And for 1,000 years, he's able to enjoy with his beautiful wife and the kingdom and everything. And guess what happens? Who can guess? What do you think, Matthew? What do you think happens after 1,000 years of incredible enjoyment with a beautiful wife and a palace and riches and everything? What do you think?
Becomes old.
Huh?
Gets old.
No. Yes.
He realizes that he can't get enough, and then he gives his age back to his son.
Yes. Yes, because what happened? During that time, he wanted to continue his pious activities. Sukriti. He wanted to continue, so it was performing charity and sacrifices, yajnas and all that. And he was becoming slowly purified. And then, as you said, after all that time, he realized this is not real happiness. So, at that moment, at that critical juncture in our life, getting to the moral of the story, we all come to a critical juncture in our life when we realize that material enjoyment is not the real purpose of human life. It's not that we don't enjoy, like for instance, if you're family people, because oftentimes this becomes a great concern. I remember once I was preaching to a very famous rock star. Her name is Annie Lennox. She was, at the time, it was in the 80s, she was very famous. And she was saying, I just got my dream. I'm a rock star and I'm worth millions and people. I can't give that up. And I told her, who asked you to give it up? Just like George Harrison. George Harrison came to Prabhupada and he said, Prabhupada, I think I'd like to become a brahmachari. I'd like to give it up. And Prabhupada said, I'm not asking you to give it up. He said, what you can do for people in general is far more if you remain who you are. So it's the same with us. It's the same with Arjuna, was it not? Arjuna wanted to give it all up. I don't want to fight. I don't want to kill Bhishma. I don't want to kill Duryodhana. I don't want to kill any of them. Shakuni, no. I won't do that. And he became very depressed. And he wanted to renounce, he wanted to become a Nagababa up in the Himalayas. And Krishna said, no. That's sinful. Because one of the reasons that Arjuna gave for not fighting is it's sinful. He was compassionate. It'll hurt society because so many women, their husbands will be killed, so many children. He was giving good reasons. They're not bad reasons. But when he gave those reasons, what did Krishna do? He gave a little Mona Lisa smile. You know Mona Lisa smile? It wasn't a full smile. It was a Mona Lisa smile. It was like, yeah, right. Arjuna, this is sinful, what you're proposing. You're proposing something on the bodily concept of life, and you think that's going to be the solution to your your despair. Arjuna Vishada Yoga is the first chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Arjuna's despair leads him to yoga. So he says, you think by doing that, by giving it that's going to, no. That's not correct. So, immediately, what does Krishna launch into? He draws from where? Samkhya Yoga. Samkhya Yoga. Imagine you go to a psychologist, right? You're having marital problems. And the first thing the psychologist says to you is, Natwe Baham Jakum Narasam Atvam Name Janapala Chaya Avishyama Sarayam Taparam. It's the first thing he says to you. Never was there a time when I did not exist, nor you are true, nor all these kings, nor in the future shall any of us cease to be. Huh? But actually, Krishna is introducing Arjuna to the concept that we are not this body, we are spirit soul. And to understand that principle, it cannot be spoken about too many times. In fact, if you track Srila Prabhupada's lectures, you'll see that the topic he touches most upon is, you're not your body. Because you cannot, in yoga, you cannot go from step 1 to step 2 without being fully convinced, at least intellectually, what to speak of realization, fully convinced of that principle. Prakriti and Purusha. Prakriti, the body, the mind complex is prakritic, it is earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and ego. And the soul, its constitutional nature is the nature of Brahman, Satchit Ananda. Without understanding that, that's why Krishna first gives instructions in the Gita for social welfare. He tells, if the society will be maintained, the order maintained, if there's protection of women and Brahmins and cows and children like that. So there's instruction, general instructions. He gives instructions about how you can actually embark on the system of self-realization. One should neither eat too much nor eat too little, sleep too much nor sleep too little. He gives instructions like that. But then he also gives instructions that we are Brahman. We are the particle. Never was there a time when I, Krishna, nor you, Arjuna, nor all these kings, nor all these living entities individually, never is there a time when they'll not cease to exist. They'll always exist. Ityo nityanam chetanas chetanam ekopahanam yodhidiketanam. There is Nitya, the supreme, and Nityanam, the eternal living entities, always in existence. And from that one supreme, like sparks from a fire, they are coming, they are emanating. So this principle is a very important principle. So getting back to the what we were discussing, let me see. Oh, no, I can't read it. I don't have it here. Yeah, so embracing old age gracefully and enthusiastically means you don't grow old. Surprise hit. We're free. We're free at last. The concept is, according to Patanjali, he says there's 5 kleshas. Those 5 kleshas are what keeps us in the bodily concept of life. And he elaborates on the kleshas. Avidya is the first klesha. And what the kleshas do is they amplify the gunas. So they amplify your attachments. So avidya is the first klesha. And avidya means ignorance. And ignorance is like the root of the klesha tree. From ignorance, everything else develops. If we're ignorant of the fact that we're not our bodies, we're not our white bodies, we're not our brown bodies, we're not our black bodies, we're not our yellow bodies, we're not our red bodies, we're not our bodies. If we're ignorant to that fact, then we are going to be attached to what we think we are. Dhyayato vishayam pumsa, samgasteshu vijayate, samgat sanjayate, kama krodha vijayate, krodha bhavati sammohat smriti vipama, smriti pramshad bhuhi nasho. What's the last one? Thank you very much. Senior moment. I embrace it. All the senior moments. Because in the material world, everything deteriorates, right? It's nature. So in this way, if contemplation, what Krishna says, you contemplate, you develop attachment. From that attachment, desires. Because desires, even if you try to fulfill those desires, as Yayati tried to fulfill his desires, it's not ultimately satisfying. You may get a quick hit off of it, a quick hit of gratification, but fulfillment is not there. And the nature of the soul is santosh, it's contentment, it's fulfillment. And if that's not there, then we do not feel satisfied. So Yayati, imagine the immense wealth and power at his disposal, and he can enjoy it all. And 1,000 years he had. And what was the conclusion? I'm not happy. So that's what we have to understand. Embracing whatever Krishna gives us with gratitude, with enthusiasm. When you embrace, you usually do it with a heart, a full heart, right? You see somebody you haven't seen in a long time, you embrace them, or they embrace you, and you feel that connection, don't you? So also embracing that, and not resisting, because resisting just causes more and more pain and suffering. It doesn't accomplish anything, really. We don't feel any better by resisting. We just prolong the agony. And you know what? You may say, I'm 30 years old. I still have 60 more or 50 more years of enjoyment. But you know what the definition of old age is? What's the definition of old age? Gopal.
Before death. The day before death.
Yes, the time before death, right before death. That's old age. So it doesn't matter what your age is. When you use the allotted number of breaths that you've given according to your karma, or Krishna so dictates, when that happens, when that time comes, then that's it. And that is old age. So therefore, human life is meant to understand this principle and not to be distracted by weapons of mass distraction, which take our attention away from the real goal of life. And as I said, it is a dual track. That on one hand you can fulfill your duty, you can fulfill your dharma, and on the other hand simultaneously you fulfill sanatana dharma. That both can be there. You can be responsible, husband, mother, child, grandchild, citizen, all the various responsibilities that are rolled up into the society that we live in. You can do that. But simultaneously, you have to also ride the other track. Because like Yayati, because he maintained some element of sukriti, of piety, and he became purified over that time. What to speak of the abundance of good fortune that we have in given the opportunity to be able to regularly perform sadhana, chanting every day. Who is stopping us? Besides this guy in your head. Who is stopping? And that's the case in any situation. Any barrier to anything is usually coming from the mind. The mind can be your best friend or it can be your worst enemy. That's what Krishna, in the Dhyana Yoga section of Gita, that's what Krishna tells Arjuna. Your mind's either your best friend, and following the directions given by the Supreme Lord, or whimsical. You know what sin means? There's a Judeo-Christian translation of sin, breaking the laws of God. But the original definition of sin is error in judgment. Making an error in judgment. So the big error in judgment is when we invest in that which is going bankrupt. That's the big error in judgment. So we can only embrace with enthusiasm and gratitude the gray hairs, the wrinkles in the eyes, the turkey neck, and all these things. We can only embrace this. Like this one young boy, he performed worship to Yamaraj. And when did extensive worship, and finally Yamaraj appears to him and says, "What is it that you want?" He said, "All I want from you, Yamaraj, is you give me notice of my time of death." And so Yamaraj said, "So be it." He reaches his 30s, no notice from Yamaraj. He reaches his 40s, no notice from Yamaraj. But he started getting a little gray hair. You guys know what I mean. Women, of course, not. They always know. A little gray hair at the temples. 50, no Yamaraj. Of course, my eyes are a little weaker. I had to get glasses the other day. But no Yamaraj. 60, no Yamaraj. But I am getting a little arthritic in the knees and the hips here. 70s, no Yamaraj. So he thinks he's out of the woods for a while. All of a sudden, Yamaraj comes. He goes, "Wait, what are you doing here?" "I've come for you." Because Yamaraj is the god of death. That's his duty. "I've come for you." "Come?" No, you're supposed to tell me when you're coming." He said, "Tell you when I'm coming? At 30, I gave you gray hair. At 50, I gave you weak eyes. I gave you wrinkles on your eyes. At 60, I gave you arthritis. At 70, you started losing your memory. What more do you want? I'm giving you signs all the way. What are you talking about? So don't be under the illusion that I'm young, I got some years, I can still... Don't be like Yayati. I mean, Yayati came to that conclusion eventually. But we don't know. We don't know when we take our last breath. Therefore, be grateful. Gratitude is the attitude that we have to constantly embrace. My wife always says to my son, when he complains, she says, we will send you to Yemen and see what the kids there are doing. No, because he knows. No, that's okay. No, she said, you must be grateful. Look what all that Krishna has given you. So that's the mood that we have to imbibe. We have to say, understand, and be grateful. What has been given to me, the mercy is unbounding, unlimited. Every morning we wake up and thankful that I have the people that I have in my life, I have the benefits that I've been blessed with. And don't try to resist. Just embrace it. And when that time comes, by the mercy of Krishna, He will pull us back by our sikas. And if we don't have a sika, He'll grab us in a headlock and take us up back to God. Thank you very much, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Lakshmi Narasimha Prabhu ki jai.
Very good. So, Arti?
Or any questions anybody has?
Does anyone have any question or comment or realizations or just plain hungry? No questions or comments? Okay.
I have a question.
Yes.
My husband asked me this question actually.
Yeah.
Just by taking the name of the God, how am I going to get liberated?
Right. That's a very good question,
I know.
don't you think? Well, at face value, it seems like that. But if we don't have the proper mindset also, it's certainly valuable to chant the names of God. Certainly it is. But in order to achieve the highest rung of liberation, which is prema, love, why are you doing chanting God's names? It's the first question you should ask him. Why do you want to chant God's names? Well, because you're my wife, you're telling me to chant God's names. Yeah, so what is your answer going to be? I'm telling you to chant God's names because?
Because He loves you.
Ah.
And if you love the God,
Uh-huh.
you should chant His name.
Yes.
That was what I told him.
Yes.
That is the only way to get liberated, by remembering Him more.
What's your name?
Him.
Hema. Suppose your husband called you woman. Would you like that? No. But he calls you Hema, right? And he may even have a pet name for you, like a little affectionate name you don't have to reveal to us here. But because that's exchange. It's the way love is exchanged. So you can use that analogy. Your child, you have children? Your child, maybe he has a pet name.
Because this is the question, people have. Like,
Yeah.
why you need to change the name? You just play in the mind and it's done.
Yeah.
No, I said, no, it's not done.
Right. But
Because when you love somebody,
Uh-huh.
you have to take his name and remember him continuously.
Exactly. It's called samskara. Samskara means impressions. You create impressions in your mind.
You have to create a good impression.
Yeah.
If you are doing the bad things and saying, this is good, it's not good.
You know what the mind is like? I'm probably dating myself by saying that the mind is like a radio station. Does anyone listen to radio anymore? Especially in the car? Oh, you do? Okay, we know we're from the same generation. But if you can change the radio station, right? Here's the news, here's rock music, here's country music, here's this music, here's that music. You can go back and forth, back and forth. The mind is like that. The mind can dally between 5 different thoughts in a fraction of a second. So he can say, or somebody can say to you, in the mind, but there's a lot of other stuff in the mind too.
That's what I told him.
Yeah.
Like when you chant, it is a practice. It just doesn't happen in one shot. You have to practice that.
Yeah.
Once you start sitting, you do not do the chanting first day properly. It takes time.
Very good.
You have to give that time. The same goes for the family. You have to give your time to the family.
Right?
You don't say, I earn, you do the stuff. No. You have to give that love and time to your family too. Same way, you have to give the time to God too. That is your personal thing for your soul.
Very good.
Right?
Yes. I'm an English teacher, or was at least, so I always tell people love is a noun and it's a verb. So you can say, I love you, I love you, I love you.
But doing nothing.
Right.
Doesn't make sense.
Honey, where's dinner? I love you, I love you, I love you.
That's
Honey, was the laundry done today? I love you, I love you, I love you. Love is a noun, it's also a verb. So Krishna, what does Krishna say? Man mana bhava mato madhyati mam namastu. Everyone.
Man mana bhavato madhyati mam namastu.
Yes. Always think of me, worship me. Krishna mentions that. Tesham satatam yutanam bhajatam priti purvakam dadami buddhyotam yena mama bhyantite. Just worship me, be affectionate towards me. And that's the way relationships are, aren't they? Like you said, if your husband was sitting on the couch watching TV and not paying any attention to you, not paying any attention to your children, how happy would you be? Not very happy. Because relationship means two. It means interpersonal. Right? Interpersonal. We are personal with each other. I just heard the same thing in different ways. Puru says in the Bhagavatam, he describes first-class son is a son who understands the needs of the father before the father even speaks them. Second-class son is when the father requests them. And Prabhupada, I was just heard Prabhupada say, friendship, first-class friendship, that you know how to please your friend before they even ask. You do things for your friends before they even express what they want or what they need. You see? So this is a mystic power that you're given when you're personal. You get the power to understand other people, depending on, of course, the intimacy of the relationship, but you get the power to understand other people's needs, even before they express them. That is, I mean, we all have the ability to cultivate mystic powers. Anima Siddhi, Lagima Siddhi, Mahima Siddhi, Prapti Siddhi, Vakamya Siddhi, Kamavayasita Siddhi. There's 8 major siddhis that you can, anybody who practices yoga seriously can cultivate those siddhis. But we all have, if we are connected to others, then we know. We know what the other person likes. Not that you buy them a gift that you really always wanted, and you get a chance to use it. But you buy the gift that you know when you give that person says, it's just what I wanted. Thank you. Nothing more rewarding than that. So thank you for that question.
actually thanks to my husband for asking this.
Is your husband here?
Yeah, he's there.
Thank you, husband. Very, very intelligent, astute question. And thank you for...
Well, my question was not that. My question was, you pray to God and you don't do the right karma, that's not the way.
You pray to God.
When you don't do the right karma, right dharma, that's not the way. What Lord Krishna said is there are only 2 ways to get to God, is karma yoga, karma sannyasa, you know. Karma sannyasa does not apply to us.
Right.
Because it's almost impossible in this day and era. So the way to reach God is karma yoga.
Yeah, and Prabhupada says that. It's like I said, love is a noun, it's also a verb. You have to do. And in this world, we have various dharmic responsibilities to society, to our family, etc. And we do that. But what is karma yoga? When Krishna describes karma yoga, karma kosharam, in the 2nd chapter, how does he describe it? It's the art of work. It's not only that you do what you do, but you do it where your consciousness is connected to the Supreme Lord. That you do it. Yat karoshi yadasnasi yat chahosi yadasya. All that you do, all that you offer, all that you give away, as well as all as austerities and charities, you do it as an offering to me. So what Krishna tells Arjuna is, no, you do everything. You fight for me. Don't give up your duty as your dharma as a kshatriya. You fight, but you fight for me. Don't give up your responsibilities as a family person. You fight through all of it as an offering to Krishna.
So that's exactly what I'm saying is, you do the dharma, which is the most important thing. You do the dharma because it's not you doing it. You are a servant doing it for God. Nishnam karma. But you have to do the right dharma. If you just don't do the right thing and just pray to God, it's not going to get you to God, That's what I'm trying to say.
Okay.
So my question was different, My question was not why you pray God. My question is, you pray God, but if you don't do dharma, it's not going to get you anywhere. It may get somewhere a little bit, but not. That's not the way. You have to do your dharma, That's what I believe in.
If I may add, that Cheto Darpana Marjanam Dava Nirvapanam, that the chanting of God's names cleanses the heart and gives us the clarity of perspective to do the right thing.
To some extent, but you don't see it in everyone.
You don't see it in everyone because not everyone's chanting God's names. And even if they are chanting God's names, there's a caveat to that. You have to chant God's names without offense. You can't be offensive to God and chant, or you can't be inattentive. Bhaktivinoda Thakur, one of our great spiritual teachers, says that the offenses to the holy name the root cause of that is inattentiveness. So if we're chanting God's names, but we're doing other things, and we're not really, it's like me talking to Hema. Yeah, Hema, that's right. Good for you, Hema. Yeah, I hear what you're saying. That is rude, right? I'm not paying any attention to her. There's no eye contact, etc. So when we chant God's names, and our minds are here, there, and everywhere, then that's really not chanting. That's, that's mumbling. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur also says that the infusion of the presence of the Supreme Lord will not even be there in those syllables unless chanted in the proper way. So I agree with you in part, but I also want to say that if you chant properly, then all the, it says in the Bhagavatam, all the qualities of the demigods automatically manifest in your heart. It's part of the purificatory process. And Dharma has many different connotations. There's Sanatana Dharma, but there's also a thing called Yuga Dharma. Each age, whether it's Satya Yuga, Treta Yuga, Dwapara Yuga, or Kali Yuga, has a Yuga Dharma. And according to the time, the Supreme Lord, He directly enunciates what the Yuga Dharma is. So in this particular age of Kali Yuga, which is a very difficult age, the Supreme Lord has come and He's told us the Yuga Dharma is chanting God's names. He's given us that directive. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has given us that directive. Yes, Matthew?
Now, expanding on that, the Dharma. So, say you're a merchant.
Say you're what?
Merchant, you run a business.
Right.
And you're supposed to be devoted, you're running your business for God. Right? You're running it for Krishna. But part of the business you're trying to grow because you're always trying to be the biggest business there is. To get more and more and more. At what point do you decide that you're doing it for God, for Krishna, or you're doing it just for yourself?
Yeah, very good question. Did everyone hear that question? Matthew's a businessman. He's engaged in business. So he says, okay, you're supposed to do your business and do it for God. But what if you want to expand your business? You have this desire to expand and expand.
No, it's a desire. You have no choice, really.
Huh?
Do you have a choice?
Do you have a choice?
Yes.
Yes.
Well, you always have choice, but it's not. It just depends on where it's taking you. You have to. Everyone has to prioritize their life. That's squarely in your corner. It's not your wife's position. It's not your partner's position. You have to prioritize your life. So the only way you can truly ride those two rails, in other words, not attached to the fruits of your labor. You can work hard, grow your business, as long as you realize the fruits of my labor is my offering to the Supreme, and you prove it. I think the saying is, put your money where your mouth is.
How do you prove that?
Well, if you yourself can't help others to realize that, then you, in some way, use your donations or whatever to help that, to help others come in connection with the Yuga Dharma. I mean, that's been my whole life. We don't have a whole lot of money, but my wife regularly gives donations, whatever she can give. And I regularly try to just dedicate my life to connecting people to the Yuga Dharma. That's how Sid and I met. Sid and I met at a chanting, right? He went there because he lived in India for a year, and he was a serious seeker. When he came back, he was looking for people to relate to who were also serious about developing. And Sid and I got to talking, found out that we had a lot of similarities, became friends, and here he is. Huh? What's the real
That
reason?
was the night that Elon played and sang.
Uh-huh.
Friend,
Uh-huh.
the Grammy musician. That's the reason everybody came.
Ah.
I'm joking.
Yes, Bharat?
How you define first-class devotee? You define first-class son and first-class friend.
First-class friend?
First-class devotee, what is the definition?
Well, there's three classes. There's Kanishta Adhikari, Madhyama Adhikari, and Uttama Adhikari. So first-class devotee is Uttama Adhikari. That's the highest level of devotion. There's nothing that can dissuade them from glorifying the Supreme, meditating on the Supreme with all purity. That person is on the highest level. Madhyama Adhikari is someone who's also on a high level, but he may not be able to, when speaking the philosophy, may not be able to give you the specific verse which that philosophical point is pointing to. So they may not, where Uttama Adhikari knows everything, lives perfectly accordingly. So that's first class devotee. Madhyama Adhikari, even though it's second class, considered second class, is not really. It's very high level. But they're not fully developed or fully ripened. Like you can have a mango on the tree about to fall, fully developed, fully ripened. You can have another mango partially developed, partially ripened, but it will eventually in the course of time. Madhyama Adhikari continues, will become fully ripened. Kanishta Adhikari, Bhaktivinoda Thakur also calls it Komala Bhakti, means shaky devotion. That they believe God exists, they believe I should serve God, but they criticize other devotees, they minimize other devotees, they still think a lot of themselves, and their devotion is not a high quality. That's first, second, and third, according to Nectar Devotion, the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. And Radhika Bhakti.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Wonderful class. Prabhu, I just wanted to add one thing to Prabhu's question.
Yeah.
His question was, you pray and you can still not follow dharma, was the Prabhu's question, right? So one thought came to my mind was, like how our subtle body is made up of soul, mind and intelligence. So what happens when we pray is, yes, our mind is where all our thoughts, feelings, everything resides. And intelligence is higher than the mind. Intelligence is where we will have the power of discrimination, what is right to do, what is not right to do. So this intelligence will grow only through chanting, definitely prayers, and also reading Shastras like Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam. So then this is also comes under the prayer category. So if we do the prayer properly, chanting and reading Shastras, once your intelligence is fixed, Prabhu was saying, right, I will pray and I might still not do the dharma correctly. So that will not happen. The prayer means not just sitting and praying, asking for do this, or even not even asking, just chanting like that. So we have to take care of our mind and intelligence together. So we are well protected. So we will walk on dharma. There is no other way. We will walk on the right dharma. I just wanted to add that.
Thank you very much. And Prabhupada said as much. And Prabhupada proved as much. Because, as you all know, if you know the story of Srila Prabhupada, when he came here, nobody was following Dharma. In fact, it was quite the trend to purposely not follow any kind of rules and regulations. And that's what Prabhupada had to deal with. How did Prabhupada deal with it? He dealt with it, but he just got a bunch of monkeys to chant Hare Krishna. That's true. A bunch of monkeys to chant Hare Krishna. So, monkeys helped Ram, right? And Prabhupada knew by purification. So Prabhupada had a two-prong attack, they call it. Chant Hare Krishna, and take prasad. Vacho vegam, manasa krodha vegam, jiva vegam, udara upashva vegam. 6 urges. Urge of the tongue to speak, the urge of anger, the urge of the mind, the urge of the tongue to taste, the urge of the belly, and the urge of the genitals. So Prabhupada knew. Those other urges, can't deal with them. Can't deal with their mind and their anger and their belly and their genitals at this point. But let's deal, vacho vegam, their urge to speak, give them the holy name of Krishna. Jiva vegam, give them nice prasadam, and the prasadam will keep them chanting Hare Krishna, and eventually they'll become purified. And that's what happened. Exactly that strategy as given to us by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he didn't emphasize puja. He emphasized the holy name. Why did the Alvars, why did they become so popular? They were taking the chanting, their beautiful, heartfelt, pure songs to the Supreme Lord, and people were hearing that. And bhakti is intrinsic in everyone's heart. So when you do the history of the bhakti movements, beginning with the Alvars, you see his heartfelt petition to the Lord. I am yours. That is bhakti. I am yours. When you love somebody, you say, I am yours and I am available. That's what you say. If you love, you have a friend, Sid calls me up, 3 o'clock in the morning, Lakshmi, my car broke down, I need a ride. Or vice versa. Probably more vice versa. Sid is always bailing me out. If I call him up, yeah, I'll be right over. Every time I call him up, Sid, I got this problem. I'll be right over. Never like, can you hire a carpenter? No, I'll be right over. Always. That's love, availability. We asked, not me, but another friend of mine, Prabhupada's Sanskrit scholar, Pradyumna, he asked, can you give me a unique definition for bhakti? And he said, yes, available. That's bhakti. Because there's no concern for your own needs. It's only concern for Krishna. You know the whole story of Krishna had a headache.
Yes.
To make a very long story short, the only ones that would give Krishna the cure for his headache were the gopis. That was the dust from their feet. Everybody else said, Shiva said, you're crazy. You know, everybody else said, no, I can't put the dust from my feet on Krishna's head. Are you? No. The gopi said, take it. Take the dust. Narada said, aren't you afraid you're going to hell? So let I go to hell. I'll go to hell. Doesn't matter. If it cures Krishna's headache, yes. Yes, Dave.
Earlier you thank you so much. Wonderful class. Earlier you were referring to Annie Lennox.
Right.
And Krishna says, yes, of course you don't have to give up. You said you had to give up your career. She's at the height of her career. However, it does feel like almost a daily tug of war. Having a career, being in a job, knowing that, or learning at the age of 50 in this case, that the goal of life is self-realization, my relationship with Krishna, God. But it does feel like this daily tug of war. So it's almost like, okay, well, if I can put that on pause, work on pause, and you can stay and dive in deeper, and then go back to it. It almost seems sometimes it's reversed. That.
Well, it happened with me. I graduated, I had my degree, I taught English for a year, and then I said, of course I was only 23 at the time, and then I said, if I'm going to continue with any career, I have to know what my purpose in life is. And one of the pillars of happiness in life is purpose. If you're rudderless, very doubtful that you're going to have happiness. So, sometimes it takes that, or sometimes it just takes the right association to get that continued dose of inspiration. The word inspire means in relationship to God. That's the literal meaning of inspire from Latin, in relationship to God. So inspiration comes to us when we are in connection with God. How do we connect to God? Only through God's devotee. So by maintaining proper association. But in some people's cases, like in your case, for instance, your daughter's grown up, or pretty much grown up now, or will be very shortly. You might want to consider that as an option, to dive deep and then go back to what you do. And I've known devotees now that are lawyers. Megendra, my godbrother Megendra, Shesha, my godbrother Amarendra, Balavanta, all my godbrothers from back in the early 70s, they're all lawyers. Doctors, I know Pushta Krishna was a well-known orthopedic surgeon. He served Prabhupada. He was a sannyasi. And he immersed himself for years and years, and then he decided to go back to school. Hridayananda Maharaj has his PhD in Sanskrit from Harvard University. So the story goes on, and it's all an individual situation in terms of work and development of Krishna consciousness. The first priority is you have to cultivate a lifestyle that is best suited for you. And here I'm going Ayurvedic now. I hear my wife say this all the time. You need the proper lifestyle in order to be healthy. So in order to be on a progressive path of your spiritual life, you need the proper lifestyle to do that. And if you're not able to do that right now, but really want to do it, and you are in a position to do it without shirking critical responsibilities like fatherhood or whatever, then, it's an option. Short of that, you get inspiration by association. So then, you can't convince me that you can't get association, because association is abundant nowadays. So that's what I would recommend. You look at your life long and hard and see what your next move will be in order to help you. Bhakti yoga is like a rocket ship. If a rocket ship is making progressive movement, it will eventually break from gravity. If it hovers for even a moment, gravity will pull it back down. Bhakti has to be progressive, even if it's small increments, tiny increments, as long as it's progressive. And then we're able to break the influence of the material energy, like Krishna's case. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.